Briahna Joy Gray has been heavily attacked on Twitter over the weekend. I know it's still part of the weekend and it is still going on. She participated in a debate panel where even one of the moderators attacked her. So again, I think people need to decide whether or not they want to be a moderator or they want to be a part of the debate. We've talked about this before, but she has been heavily attacked. And apparently this panel took place in front of an audience of Zionists based on what I heard from the applause. So I want to bring this up here so you guys can see who is on this panel. Constantine, he is actually the moderator, but doesn't act like one. Bree, Michael Monahan, Eli Lake, and Jake Klein. So let's go ahead and dive into this. There's different parts of this debate that I do want to focus on. The first piece here is about the numbers, the death toll in Gaza. This is the first part of the issue that I want to focus on that they debated on. And I just want you to see the lack of disrespect that they had for Bree as well. Let's dive in.
Briahna, I want to come back to the numbers point because I think it's really important. I'm going to do something which is blatantly going to fail, but I'm going to try anyway, which is ask every single one of you to answer that question very briefly, which is how many civilian casualties do you think there have been in Gaza and how many Hamas fighters have been killed? And we'll just go around everybody and give me a figure.
I think it's really important to note that Israel has accepted and verified Hamas's number, the Hamas's numbers routinely over years and years and years. And at no point has the Hamas numbers that have come out in the immediate wake of an incident been revised. Has there been a determination that those numbers were an estimation so that Israel would have to recalibrate its choice to rely on those numbers? When we're talking about, remember we're talking about Hamas numbers.
Just give me the numbers though. Just give me the number.
Hamas is the government. I did a really short opening, so I hope you don't mind if I...
Fine.
Hamas is the government of Gaza. So in Gaza, the person who picks up your trash from outside of your house is Hamas. The person who runs the hospital and gives you your, childhood vaccines or whatever is Hamas. Literally everybody is Hamas, and the Hamas Health Ministry, which has been keeping these numbers, has been relied upon by international organizations and by Israel up until this point, at which it is, I think, inconvenient for Israel to accept these numbers that are very, very high. These numbers have been stuck at about 34,000 for over a month now because everyone who used to do the counting in the Hamas Health Ministry is dead. The hospitals have all been destroyed. Every hospital in Gaza has been destroyed, partly because of mythology, like the idea that a Hamas headquarters was under Al-Shifa Hospital, which was disproven roundly. It absolutely was.
Briahna, you're entitled to your opinion, but not your own facts.
It was. There was no Hamas headquarters under Al-Shifa Hospital.
Briahna, so
there hasn't been, and there continues not to be.
Let me,
but the consequence
let me just ask this again, because I asked you about fighters. I asked you about Hamas fighters.
Let me pause there for a second. So the reason why I believe she's explaining all of that is because how many times has mainstream media, also Zionists, parroted the narrative that the numbers are not true, that it's coming from the health ministry, so you can't believe anything that the health ministry is saying. So that's the reason why I believe she went into that explanation. They constantly do interrupt her throughout this debate, though.
So 34,000 total.
What we know is
how many fighters?
3/4 of those are women and children.
So how many of those are fighters?
So even if all of the men were Hamas, which we know there aren't, because, for example, just a month ago, we saw the drone footage of an IDF drone tracking and shooting 4 Palestinian children as they were going through the rubble of their own house. I mean, there's innumerable examples of seeing people who are not Hamas being killed.
Okay.
Israel obviously notoriously shot 3 of its own hostages that were stripped down nude trying to get free. So even if you count whatever the remaining 3/4 as being Hamas, it still remains the case that 3/4 of the 34,000 are women and children.
So how many would you say are fighters?
I rely on the same numbers that everybody else does. I'm saying even worst case scenario.
So what are those numbers?
You're asking me to do math? What's
no,
1/4 of 34?
Well, I don't think all the men who've been killed are
8,000 or so.
Do you agree with that, Jake?
It's approximately right. I mean, the numbers that I have, these are the numbers believed by U.S. intelligence.
Around 35,000 total killed, 70% women and children. That's 24,500, and then not all the men are going to be Hamas
so
fighters.
Somewhere 7,000-8,000. Yeah,
that's the best. Yeah, that's the best number.
I will come back to you guys. Do you agree with those numbers first? I just want to establish this as a baseline.
No, I do not.
No. Okay.
Let me explain. I think a lot of people may have missed the story, but Hamas's own Gaza Ministry of Health revised downward their own casualty estimates about a month ago.
That's not true.
So let's pause. So again, this is another lie that is being spread and parroted by Zionists. Guys, this has already been debunked multiple times that that story was not true, that they did not say that their numbers were incorrect. So you see, this is a trick that we see happen over and over again, where when you see these debates that happen with Zionists, they continue to repeat news information that has already been debunked like weeks ago. You see it on the debates with Piers Morgan's show, right? You see it on this debate panel. They're repeating those narratives, anything to make their case that Israel is the good guy and the Palestinian people are the bad ones.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
No, that's false. What happened is that they said that about 11,000 people did not have all the identifying information. The United States continues to believe the total number. That's false.
I don't know that the U.S. government.
I'll put out sources online.
What's your number? Eli, what's your number?
First of all, let me. I'm not trying to get out of it, and I'm not trying to. But I'm saying I think the most prudent thing to say is that, especially in the fog of war, we don't actually know who was a civilian and who was a fighter, and we usually find out that these things are wildly different. Just like we hear initial reports of massacres that turn out not to be massacres, or we hear initial reports of things that look fine and turn out to be much worse. There's a lot of things that in the heat of a battle, in the heat of a war, we can't possibly know. But I'm comfortable saying that it's telling that some 10,000 or 11,000 people they can't identify doesn't mean, I think that would be reason for some sort of skepticism at that point, considering that is their job.
So let me tell you something. So this is a part of the propaganda, right? So notice the heavy focus on the numbers. How many of those people were actually civilians? How many of them are actually fighters? Do we really know? Do we really know for sure? Maybe we should question that. The reason why they are focusing on that is because they're trying to use that as an excuse or some type of pushback towards the word genocide. That's why they are trying to focus on the numbers and say, well, we don't really know if all of those people that were killed were actually civilians. The people in the community know. The people in the community know if those people were civilians or fighters or not. Regardless of the matter, the point is this. What Israel has done to Gaza as a response to what happened on October 7th is above and beyond, and it is disgusting. You have nurses, you have doctors who have traveled to Gaza to help treat people there who have said on national television they have never seen anything like it. Doctors Without Borders, never seen anything like it. So that in itself tells you something. Now we're going to go to the next part here. I want to make sure I got my sections lined up just right. The next part here where I think I just said this part. I just want to make sure. Yeah. Fast forward in a little bit here to 2905. This part here as well. Watch what they do.
Part of why the Hamas Health Ministry is very good at tracking the deaths is because, and by the way, Israel isn't contesting, apart from for political reasons, took a while for them to start contesting these numbers. It's because Israel knows where every single person in Gaza lives. Gaza is under the control of Israel. It is an occupied territory according to international law. And as a consequence, they know the names and ages and addresses of all the people that have been killed. That is why Palestinians have been able to put up slideshows where you can scroll through. It takes about, I think, 7 minutes to scroll through the names of just the 13,000 children.
Just the 13,000 children. So like I said before, the people in the community know. And if you guys haven't seen that video, I've seen that video before on social media of all the names of the kids that were killed. So they have been keeping track. Now, why would they keep track? Because this is not the first time that Israel has attacked Palestinian people. This has been going on for decades, right? This isn't the first time. Israel has been known to go into Gaza prior to October 7th and mow the lawn. So they have become accustomed to keeping track of the names and the people and the places and all those types of things so that they know who is gone. They know who is missing.
That have been killed with their ages next to their names. These are real people. And so even if you think every adult, including all of the women, were Hamas and deserve to die, I think there's a really important question as to whether or not you think the 13,000 children who have been killed, some of whom we've watched been tracked down and killed by Israeli drone cameras, are the adequate consequences, collateral damage for this allegedly just war.
Okay.
So Briahna, if the reason that you trust those numbers is because they have the specific information, well, doesn't that also mean that you wouldn't trust numbers that were then, they couldn't say anything, information about this 10 or 11,000?
What are you talking about? I don't understand.
When they revised their numbers, they said, these are people that are part of the totals and we don't have names or anything else with that.
Corroborating evidence is what I'm describing. So for a lot of the deaths, they're able to...
You don't have any corroborating evidence for a third of
one at a time.
Can you respond to the 13,000 children and whether or not you think that they're
I'm happy to respond to the 13,000 children.
Damage?
Can you respond to whether or not you still think...
haven't done so yet.
What?
Can you respond? You said you're
okay,
happy
well, you
to
haven't
respond,
answered my question. You just told me that the reason that you trust the numbers is because they've painstakingly
given what I said.
The names and the ages.
No.
Yes, you did. We all heard it.
I said one of the
Yes, you did. And then I asked you if that's the case.
They all end up the same.
Everybody stop. Everybody stop. Everybody stop.
Wait a minute.
Everybody stop.
So see all of the tension. See all of the attention. So again, the question is proposed by the moderator. See how much time they've spent focusing on just the numbers. And by the way, this isn't all of it. I jumped ahead because we would be here for quite a while for that part of the conversation. But notice what they are doing, right? So the moderator, this is intentional. Because again, it's taking away from everything that has happened to the Palestinian people prior to October 7th, which is what they don't want to discuss. They don't want to focus on, not Bree, but the Zionists that are on that panel. And then when you start to bring that up, they are very quick to interrupt you, to cut you off, to make sure you don't tell the truth about the history. So there's a lot of focus on the numbers here. So again, for those just joining, the moderator is this gentleman here with the glass in his hand. Okay, his name is Konstantin. He's the moderator.
I said one of the many reasons that you can come to trust the numbers is because there are these records that can corroborate many of the deaths. Moreover, I would point to other instances, for example, the fact that a CNN investigation showed that Israel has desecrated 16 cemeteries in Gaza since this conflict started.
Okay.
Is Hamas under the cemetery? At what point do we acknowledge that this is an effort to destroy a community so that no one ever wants to return and ethnically cleanse them out of Gaza permanently?
Okay, cool. So we'll leave that part there because one of the interesting things is...
Okay, and then we're going to move forward to the next part here. We'll get to the Danes comment that some of you probably saw on social media already. We're moving on to this part here. I just want to make sure my timestamps are okay. Just making sure I got that right. This piece here, then we jump in.
Pointing to the fact that, like half the population of Gaza today are the actual people or the descendants of the 700,000 who were purged, ethnically cleansed from the land that is now called Israel and the Nakba. So I'm sure many of you can imagine what you would do in that sort of a scenario. If when your grandparents were young and your parents were their children in their house, they had been chased out of wherever you live at 13 Pine Drive or whatever, and you were forced to move a state over in a refugee camp. That's constructively what Gaza is. It's a refugee population of 2.3 million people. And you can look over there. You are close enough. You can Google Maps if you have Google.
And I'm going to put this to them. I'm going to put this question to them. But what should Israel have done?
That there's a family that's literally living in a house that you might still have keys to, tending olive groves that were your family's line of business if they haven't cut those all down. And so the people who have had that experience, as you can imagine if you were in their shoes, are never going to let up, wanting to have the right to return to their homes. This is
Never going to let up wanting to have the right to return to their homes. This part is very important because the number of times people have said that, well, they were offered a two-state solution and they turned it down. They have never been offered the right to return, which means they are still refugees. Like, what was done to the Palestinian people is wrong. And I don't need to sit up here and listen to people tell me that because they read a book and because they follow a certain religion, that this is all supposed to happen or should happen because of their religious belief. Religion is a belief. What has happened to the Palestinian people is a part of the Zionist project. The goal was to cleanse the land and make the land only for Israelis, even people who come there to settle, and we call them settlers. So let's just keep it real. We talked about this before. How many people in Netanyahu's cabinet are indigenous to the land? I'll wait. How many? How many? Those aren't even their names. And if you look it up, you'll see it yourself. They changed their names to make it sound like they're indigenous to the land, but they're not. So a lot of the people in Netanyahu's cabinet are Eastern European, Western Europe. They're European. They kicked these people off of their land. That is no different from what has happened in other countries across the world. This is the final stage of colonialism. And that is the best way that I can describe this. If it's just about religion, folks, why are they beating the Hasidic Jews in Israel in the streets that don't want to follow Zionism? Why are they beating them if it's just about religion? If it's just about religion, why did they sterilize Ethiopian Jewish women against their will? If it's just about religion, they're Jewish. Everybody knows what's happening here. The problem is the people on that stage, and you're going to see this in a second, the people on that stage believe that they are entitled to that land and the Palestinians should not be there. And for Germany, and I got something to say to you, Germany, okay? Because I spent part of my childhood growing up in Germany. You got some damn nerve. For you to sit up there and beat your own people, the protesters in the streets, because they're advocating for the Palestinian people. For you to treat them in such a way, I didn't see you try to give up any of your damn land. Where did the atrocities happen? Why are the Palestinian people having to pay for what happened in Germany and Poland? Why haven't they given up their damn land? Everybody start asking that question. Ask it. Let's continue.
It's not a kind of 2,000 years ago sort of a dream. This is
Are there lots of Pakistanis who want to return to India?
In my lifetime, you purged me from my literal home where I have keys to, and now it's being occupied by someone who maybe immigrated from Europe, maybe immigrated from Brooklyn, and that injustice really hits home. On top of that, you've been denied the right to have any kind of state, a passport, an airport, a country, the kind of things that constitute a country, right? Joe Biden is now spending your tax dollars building a port in Israel, in Gaza rather, because Gaza isn't allowed to have those kinds of infrastructure, basic infrastructure projects on its own. So what absolutely needs to be done is for there to be a right of return for the people who were purged out of Israel.
So Briahna, just so I
understand. 100%. And by the way, that port faded away into the ocean, by the way. That port is no longer usable. Really bad infrastructure. Pretty predictable since the United States government were the ones that built it. Pretty predictable. A very good point there from Bree. And one more part from this debate here that I want to highlight as well. And then we'll get to that cringe comment about the Danish people. Here we go.
Netanyahu did not deliver suitcases full of cash. He arranged for the Qataris to give development aid to Hamas because no one in Europe, for good reason, no one in America for good reason, wanted to actually have the, dirty up their hands by giving various kinds of money to a humanitarian group, but given the fact that they were the sovereigns of Gaza, someone needed to provide for basic infrastructure.
It's UNRWA.
That's what happened.
Hold on.
That's what happened. That's what happened. And it wasn't Netanyahu's policy. This is a myth that lots of people believe that Netanyahu did this for some cynical reason. He did it because the entire rest of the civilized world, like the United States, was saying, you have to figure out some way to get some development aid into Gaza, even though I understand that no other groups really want to, except for Qatar, of course, wants to deal with Hamas. It wasn't.
Pay close attention to the vocabulary that is being used. The word civilized is used throughout. Pay close attention to that.
Because, oh, wow, we really like Hamas launching rockets at our country every 6 months. Come on.
So this is like, it's just both ways,
I want to let Michael
answer a question.
Guys, I've given you both. I'll come back to you in a second.
I have it in front of me.
I need to ask Michael a question, and I'll come back to you.
Please, it's 2 sentences.
Two sentences. I'm going to hold you to
that. This is the Netanyahu quote. You can judge if.
Let me do the moderating. I'll take care of it. 2 sentences.
Anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state has to support bolstering Hamas and transferring money to Hamas. This is part of our strategy, to isolate the Palestinians in Gaza from the Palestinians in the West Bank.
When did he say that?
That's Netanyahu in 2019 in a meeting with the Likud leaders.
Okay.
2019, Netanyahu made that statement. So notice how Konstantin, who's in the middle, who's the moderator, notice how he had no idea. This is like, oh, when did he say that? Oh, what did you do? They pretend like they never heard these things because they're hoping that you don't do your research. They were hoping that Bree didn't do her research. They haven't been paying attention. Now, Bree is being heavily attacked online right now, in particular to this clip here. Now, Katie Halper actually did shout this out. She said it takes next level stupidity to not even know how to effectively smear someone. Pick one dishonest narrative. In this case, she's either crazy or corrupt. So that is coming from, I messed up. Oh no. Eric, can you bring that back? Sorry. I hit the back button, the Katie Halper one. But they were trying to smear Bree and calling her crazy, corrupt, like all that kind of stuff. And it was really clear like what they were doing. And they're like, well, no, what she says actually makes sense. But again, when you start like spitting facts and truths and things like that, they say that you're crazy or corrupt. Thanks so much, Eric. So let me continue on here because I accidentally clicked off of it. Sorry. So she goes on to say, oh, here it is. Here we go. For those who were blocked by the lying racist coward smearing Bree, here's a screenshot. At least Hen gets paid by the Israeli government to be a shill. Sad to see the other one doing it for free. And you'll see Josh Fox here says she lost her mind and her soul a long time ago. My deeply held convictions on this horrifying crisis are very clear and complex. Happy to share them always. I condemn the bloody, criminal, hateful extremists of both Netanyahu and Hamas. Peace must be achieved through the mutual recognition and self-determination of Jews. So you see how he's framing this, right? Okay. So she came here and she said it takes next level stupidity to not even know how to effectively smear someone. Pick one dishonest narrative. In this case, she's either crazy or corrupt. She's neither, of course, but you give away the game when you can't commit to the bit. And here's the actual vid. This is the video that has a lot of people up in arms. Listen to this.
How do we get to a solution?
So I think that we have to not talk about Arabs as though they're somehow constitutionally different than Danes. I don't know why we would essentialize populations in that way. We have to be open to the idea that the people... October 7th?
Okay, let's make this a little bit louder because this is the part here that I think has triggered a lot of people.
So I think that we have to not talk about Arabs as though they're somehow constitutionally different than Danes. I don't know why we would essentialize populations in that way. We have to be open to the idea that the people... October 7th?
So they're talking about Danish people. And he said, did Danes do October 7th? Now, again, he's the moderator. I just want to remind you guys, he's the moderator. So why is he now debating?
Constitutionally different than Danes. I don't know why we would essentialize populations in that way. We have to be open to the idea
that the people... October 7th?
Wait a minute. Muslims didn't do October 7th.
Not since the Vikings.
So do you see what's happening here? They see all Palestinians as Hamas. You see what I mean? So his argument, did Danes do October 7th? Bree responds with, well, Muslims didn't do October 7th, but that's what they see. They see them all as Hamas. And I'm going to get to the Danish bit in just a second.
Didn't do October 7th, and if you're adopting the worldview that everyone in Gaza, 2.3 million people, are responsible, then you are very much in line with Netanyahu's right-wing government, who thinks that, and therefore thinks it's appropriate to violate international law by doing collective punishment on the population, literally starving them to death, having them on the brink of famine, killing 13,000 kids. There was a very passionate description of the graphic reality of October 7th at the beginning of this. The answer is...
You're not answering my question.
I'll answer the question.
Go.
I'm sorry, I do feel like a lot of responses...
20 more seconds. Okay. 20 more seconds. The solution, please, go.
There has to be a one-state solution, which means that there cannot... When Hamas is talking about eliminating Israel, it's talking about not killing all of the Jews. It's about eliminating the idea...
Okay.
It's about...
Leave it there. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
It's about... Let me just finish, sir. Can I just finish the sentence? It's about eliminating the idea of a Jewish state. Ending a Jewish state, ending an ethno-national state, and having a state more like what we have in the United States of America.
If I can just...
Okay, let's see if I got to the civilized part. I just want to make sure. Yeah, because I wanted to show this part as well. Let me pull this up here. This part right here. The Danes argument. So this is the one from Briahna Wu, right? So Briahna Wu says, here's Bree Joy claiming Hamas does not want to genocide Jews despite it being in their charter, claiming they want a peaceful one-state solution and that Muslims were not involved in October 7th. This is a delusional fantasy multiplex. So the thing that I wanted to mention there is that, again, how many times have we corrected that Hamas's charter has been rewritten? So they're talking about things that were in their charter from decades ago compared to the new one now. Again, that's on purpose. That's intentional for them to constantly repeat incorrect information. So Bree retweeted this and she said, moments after one of the pro-Zionists on the panel argued that Muslims were unsuitable for cohabitation, unlike Danes to wild applause, I make a forceful argument against ethno-nationalism and Islamophobia, and was the case through the debate. The moderator interjected at every turn. So to the Danes part, and this is what I want people to understand, this Danes part about being civilized. So that is blatantly racist. What they're doing when they make those comments and they say, well, you know, we'd rather have like the Danish people because they don't do those things and they're civilized and the Arab people are not civilized. What they're basically telling you is that the European way is civility, that Europeans are civilized. And when they're telling you that the Danes are civilized, they're also telling you that everyone else is not. It is blatant racism. And I don't know how Bree even stayed up on that panel. I really don't know how, but it is blatant racism, you guys. You have to see the forest through the trees. They may mention the Danish people, but it's not just about the Danish people. Where do the Danish people live? Where are they from? They are in Europe. Again, a lot of those settlers that live in Israel are European. There's a reason why they don't allow the DNA test in Israel. And they change the names to make it seem like they're indigenous to the land. A lot of them are not indigenous. So that speaks to the colonial mindset once again. This is why I continue to tell you, this is the final stage of colonialism. So when they tell you they would much rather have the Danes because they are civilized, they want Eurocentric people. Because a lot of them are Eurocentric people. It's blatantly racist, blatantly racist. Now, she brought up another point on Twitter because, like I said, people are constantly attacking her. She said, did apartheid South Africa have a right to exist? And this is another question you pose to people. The same people who sit up there and continue to defend Nelson Mandela and defend his fight against apartheid South Africa. Completely different position when it comes to Israel. Why is that? No, apartheid South Africa did not have the right to exist. No, it didn't. So people are mad about that, angry about it. And August V brought up a really good point. Listen to this, because people are saying, oh, well, Nelson Mandela didn't, Okay, so this person, Yuri, said, what's going on in South Africa is not far from it. That being said, I don't recall Mandela calling to kill all white people in Africa. Have you? Because the Palestinians and their allies do that literally every day. So you see what's happening, folks? You see what's happening? Who's on the videos, the viral TikTok videos, saying that they want all the Palestinian people dead? Who's on the viral videos making fun of the Palestinian people? Who's on the viral videos calling Palestinian animals and savages? Okay, but do you see how they point the finger at the Palestinians? So August came in and said, there is not a genocide of whites or anyone in South Africa, nor the continent writ large. Listen to this. Mandela very explicitly called for the end of white minority rule in South Africa, very, very explicitly, and was jailed for it. Bree is simply calling for the end of Jewish minority rule in what was once called Palestine, and to replace it with a true liberal democracy. You don't have to agree with her view, and one can make a fine argument that with Israel, there should be an exception. I disagree with that. I don't think there should be any, like, again, there's the supremacy coming in. But that's not a reason to lie about what Bree said. This person goes on to say, listen to this. I am a Zionist and I will always be a Zionist. But can we please stop assuming everyone who is not is seeking to kill every Jew? You see what's happening here? This is the worst kind of identity politics and cancel culture, which I thought you were against. So you guys see this? Now, do we have... I don't think that's the right tweet. Yeah, I don't know why that's there. That's weird. Hold on one second. I had one more that I wanted to put up about Briahna Wu, because with her, make sure I got this here. Yep. With her, I want to show you something as well, because she's trying to both sides Israel, but she's a part of the smear campaign against Bree. And I want to show you her racism too. Look at this. I'm not rooting for death. I have called for a ceasefire repeatedly, and I support our president's efforts in the ceasefire. Also strongly publicly stood against Rafah. But I'm also smart enough. Okay, watch this now. She responded to Bree. I'm also smart enough to understand just because something is bad, it's not a genocide. Genocide requires intent. Pause. Haven't we seen plenty of videos and verbiage from Israel showing that there is intent? Okay. Briahna playing this game. The truth is you are a liar and you misinform your audience. You morally load arguments because you can't win them with the truth. You don't deserve, let's highlight this. Briahna Wu is a white woman. We're going to show you this. You don't deserve the opportunities our country has given you. You are more entitled than any white man I have ever met. So first up here, she insults Bree's intelligence and says, I am smart enough. That's her way of saying that Bree is not smart enough. Then she continues to tell Bree, you don't deserve the opportunities our country has given you. She told a Black woman, you don't deserve the opportunities our country has given you. Descendants of slaves built this country, Briahna. You see how they show just how racist they really are? I told you. Let them reveal their self. I'll tell you who she is in just a second, too. Then she goes on to say, you are more entitled than any white man I have ever met. Everybody see this? Briahna Wu. Now let's see who Briahna is. Check this out, fam. First of all, I'm pissed as fuck. She's in my state. She's in Massachusetts. And she's in Dedham. So she ain't around many Black folk. But listen to this. Executive Director of Rebellion PAC. Executive Director of Rebellion PAC. That is Cenk Uygur's PAC. Cenk Uygur, come get your girl. How does Cenk Uygur feel about Briahna Wu's comments? Telling black people they don't deserve a, come get your girl, Cenk, come get your girl. That is Cenk's PAC. Briahna Wu. I told you. The things that you are hearing them say about Palestinians, if they feel that way about Palestinian people, what do you think they're saying about Black people behind closed doors? Only now it's not even behind closed doors anymore. It's out in the open. And Briahna Wu reminds me of some of them. Again, she's supposed to be part of this progressive coalition. This woman was running for Congress, former candidate for the U.S. House in Massachusetts. This woman was running for office. This racist woman in Massachusetts was running for office. Cenk Uygur, come get your girl. Briahna Wu is exactly the type of racist, liberal Karen you would encounter in Massachusetts. Thank you for exposing yourself, Briahna Wu. Thank you for exposing yourself. And she had the audacity to run for office. This is why I continue to tell you, we can't work with some of these people. This is why we can't work. You can't work with everybody. This is why. Because they letting you know just how racist they are. Whether you like Bri or not, Bri is a Harvard educated lawyer. So for you to sit up there and insult her intelligence, then tell her that she needs to be lucky to have the benefits that our country gave to her, Briahna Wu is showing you that she also represents the same sense of supremacy. Briahna Wu is showing you that she still has a colonial mindset. And she was a progressive. Imagine that. Well. Katrina said, I grew up with Karen B's like her for real. Yeah, it's all out there. It's all out there. Exposed. So the way that people are attacking her right now, it's crazy over this debate. Crazy over this debate. Skylar says, and this goes to show it's not just white conservatives that can be racist as fuck. White liberals and even progressives can be racist with a colonial mindset. Bingo. That's what she really thinks. And honestly, if she thinks that way about Bri, who is a Harvard educated lawyer, if she thinks that way about her, what do you think? How do you think Briahna Wu thinks about the Black woman that works at Dunkin' Donuts? Kudos to Bri for hanging in there. I don't know how she hung in there that long. I really don't, because I would have had to go. Like, it's bad, but it was obvious. You guys watch the full debate because it's obvious the audience was full of Zionists. Mm-mm-mm.